Today on Up Front, control of the U.S. Senate hangs in the balance. Next, New Jersey Democratic Senator Cory Booker campaigning in Wisconsin on Democrats' chances of flipping the Senate. Then, Donald Trump's hopes of winning Wisconsin rest on the wow counties. Why has he been struggling there? And early voting is well underway in Wisconsin, the strategy behind turning out voters weeks ahead of time.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. We're counting down to the November 8th election with a flurry of activity in Wisconsin in the final days. Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine will return to Wisconsin on Tuesday. Republican nominee Donald Trump's son, Eric, was here last week. The next Marquette Law School poll should tell us more about whether Wisconsin is truly in play. It comes out this Wednesday. Both parties in these final days are investing heavily in down-ballot races, particularly for U.S. Senate. For instance, late last week, a Democratic super PAC said it would spend $2 million to help Russ Feingold. The respected Cook Political Report now projects Democrats will pick up 5 to 7 seats, with one of them being in Wisconsin. We're talking more about this now with New Jersey Democratic U.S. Senator Cory Booker, who campaigned for Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin on Thursday. Senator Booker, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your visit here and the fact that you've been here, and Chelsea Clinton's been here, and Bill Clinton's been here, and Tim Kaine will be here in the coming week. But the candidate herself hasn't been here. What does that tell us about Wisconsin? Do Democrats think this is a safe play for them right now?
I definitely know we don't. I mean, this is going to be one of those battleground states, and she has sent the best of herself. If I ever send my kid, should I ever have one, and spouse, right, I think it really shows that you're seeing so many surrogates descend here. The reality is this is a different type of campaign, and you've seen Donald Trump focus so much on states like Florida. That's really drawing a lot of her energy to focus on those states as well. But folks here have to understand that this is going to be an election where both at the Senate level and the presidential level, where unlike New Jersey, which we don't have a Senate race, and we're sort of in one category, this state can really determine the destiny of our country.
I think Republicans are counting on a lower Democratic turnout this time around. And I'm wondering if you'd address whether or not you have any concerns about whether parts of the Obama coalition that we saw in 2008 and 2012, millennials, African-American voters, whether they feel less enthusiasm this time around, whether they are perhaps less likely to vote in this election.
Well, you know, if you look at between 08 and 010, 9 million less, 7 million less Republicans voted, but 27 million less Democrats voted nationally. That kind of suppression of turnout changes elections dramatically. And there's so much on the ballot. If a parent out there has a child with a pre-existing condition, remember, they're trying to strip away the right that you have to get health insurance. People that are in prison right now for nonviolent drug offenses that the last 2 presidents admitted to doing, not changing this to make it treatment available or health care available. These are the kind of things that are being decided in this election, including critical issues on our economy, like investing in our infrastructure, which grows jobs right away and grows the economy in the long term. All of this is being thought of, and so much is going to affect your life, from criminal justice reform to job training to affordable college. It's going to be decided in this election, and folks have to come out.
Do you have any concerns that millennials may say, I'm not happy about the tone of this campaign, I don't feel very excited about either of these candidates?
If anybody is excited about the tone of this campaign, if anybody doesn't feel like I do, really turned off by what I've been hearing from the second Donald Trump announced his campaign, you've taken a policy wonk, which is Secretary Clinton, and the tenor of this campaign has been pulled into the most awful commentary about what somebody said, what group has been demeaned and degraded. It's just been frustrating when there's real issues that we can be discussing and debating. So I understand again, but we are a nation that has always worked through discouragement and always worked through impossible challenges. If you can't get enthusiastic about what I consider love, patriotic duty, patriotism is love of country, if you can't work through that and still demonstrate your patriotism and go out and vote, then in many ways, it's not a commentary on this campaign, it's really a commentary on you and your love of country.
How confident are you that Democrats will win back majority in the Senate?
If I was confident, I might be sitting at home in New Jersey. This is something we're going to have to work for. Every inch of ground you have to work for and gain. And so we're going to fight all the way through. We have to run through the tape on this election. because the Senate really is in the balance. We don't know which way it's going to go.
Well, what happens if, and I know this is one of these hypotheticals that people like you hate, but what happens if Hillary Clinton is president, if Democrats control the Senate, what happens to the Merrick Garland nomination? You've said you've been very impressed in your meeting with Merrick Garland, the Supreme Court nominee. What happens then?
I think that the Republicans and the Democrats will come together and confirm him. And I think that...
You do think that?
I do think that because, first of all, I heard a lot of my Republican colleagues almost taunting, at least one of them, while President Obama, saying he wouldn't dare put up a judge like Merrick Garland, who's a centrist and really reflects where the American general public is, being very moderate on the bench. And Obama, people thought he was going to pick a left liberal judge, and he picked somebody who was very moderate for the bench. And so I think that people are going to seize upon this and confirm him. And I know there's a lot of talk right now to the contrary, but I think sober minds will prevail.
Senator Ted Cruz, the Texas Republican who ran for president, said the other day that he doesn't think it would be a bad thing if that seat on the Supreme Court remains vacant for a while, that there's historic precedence for this, and that it wouldn't be all that bad if it just remained vacant, that the court can function as it is even with its 4-4 perceived representation.
Well, that's stunning to me. If you're a literalist, if you look at the text of the Constitution, the Senate has an obligation to review the candidates. It says advise and consent. And we have an obligation to do our jobs. We cannot, in the Senate, make a unilateral decision to undermine the Constitution by constraining, becoming obstructionist, and not giving another branch of government the full complement they need to do their job. So that's a subversion of the Constitution. It's something I would fight with everything that I had, that we have got to make sure that we do our job so the Supreme Court can function as our framers intended.
I've got just a few seconds left. How do we move forward as a nation, no matter what happens on November 8th? This has been a tough, bruising campaign. People have strong feelings about it. How do we move forward as a nation?
You know, the final words of the Declaration of Independence say that we as a nation, we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We're a country that at our very birth, we talked about the obligations we owe to one another and that we have to be not just honorable, but sacred honor. We've got to start showing each other courageous empathy, not just listening to people, but really hearing them, being able to extend to them compassion. We are a nation, the old African saying says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We're a nation that's not going to get anywhere if we start fighting on the inside. We've got to be strong and unified on the things that bind us, one American to another. This country is not about left or right. It's got to always be about moving forward. And sometimes you have to put your ego aside and look at your fellow American, regardless of their race, religion, or background, and see their dignity, see their worth, see their value, and know that we need each other to be successful.
Senator Cory Booker, the Democrat from New Jersey, a supporter of Hillary Clinton in this campaign. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And later on up front, the campaign strategy behind getting people to vote early. But first, Republican nominee Donald Trump struggling in a Wisconsin Republican stronghold. Can he turn it around?
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.